Hello, my friends and fellow VEDSies. I am making a video every day this month, or at least trying to. I'm a little bit behind, but we're having a great month so far. Me and 6 other people doing a video every day, and you can check out the links to the other wonderful fellow VEDSies in the description. Now, one of those fellow VEDSies, James, earlier on in the month, gave me the challenge to talk about School of Rock, a movie that I liked as a kid and had mentioned I liked it as a kid. So I decided to take not just that movie, but also The Rocker, the later film with Rainn Wilson, of course, as they kind of represent 2 different eras in my rock star wannabe period, which is still ongoing. So, apparently School of Rock came out when I was 7 years old, and The Rocker came out when I was closer to 12, but I guarantee I saw both of those movies a little bit later, because for me, I was a kid who, when I was 10 years old, was in a, rock and roll summer camp type thing where me and a couple friends, would play instruments, and it was a 1-week thing where we would practice a couple times, and then we'd have a gig at the end of the week. And by gig, I mean showcase for our parents, but still. And it was in that era, probably, that School of Rock resonated most with me, because I was probably convinced that, at some point, even though this is just a summer camp thing, maybe a talent agent will show up and see how freaking cool we are, and we'll probably be child stars, and it'll be a whole thing. Seriously, as a kid, you believe all that stuff, and School of Rock was sort of about that fantasy. And then The Rocker appealed to me more in high school, in my era, that I was convinced that, I probably won't graduate high school, right? Because some big band's going to ask me to open for them somehow by magic, and I'm going to go on tour around the world by then, so it's not going to be a problem. And that sort of that movie, The Rocker, lives out that fantasy of sort of being pulled from your high school in order to rock the world. Now, I'm not going to be using any clips from these movies here, mostly just because my channel's had enough problems with copyright over the years, so I'm going to just leave that. But I was amazed in watching both of these movies back how many tropes they really do share with one another. Both movies open up in virtually the exact same way. In School of Rock, Dewey Finn, aka Jack Black, is rocking out with his band No Vacancy. And a special shout out to Adam Pascal for doing an excellent job as lead singer of No Vacancy, and an excellent performance. But yes, basically Jack Black's character, as we all remember, flames out horribly in trying to be the star of the show in an epic disaster that ends in a failed stage dive. And he gets thrown out of the band. Now, The Rocker opens with Rainn Wilson's character rocking out with his band Vesuvius right before they hit it big. And he has a few too many antics on stage that annoy this record label that is hoping to sign them, and they say they'll only sign him without this crazy drummer. And then, of course, Vesuvius goes on to crazy fame, eventually getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, while Rainn Wilson's character has to just work a desk job. And then in both movies, they sort of find their passion in life by inspiring children to rock. Dewey Finn in School of Rock steals his roommate's identity in order to become a substitute teacher. It's a whole thing. I'm going to get into it. But yeah, Dewey Finn has very few redeeming qualities in this film. Whereas Fish, who is Rainn Wilson's character in The Rocker, here's his nephew is in a rock band, and they want to play prom, and their drummer has been thrown out, and they're looking for a drummer, and he sort of reluctantly steps in and then tries to make himself the band's manager and teaches them on their way up to success. I would argue Fish's interactions with the kids are the more wholesome of the two, although in both cases, watching the movie back, I am now fully on the side of the parents in being horrified that their kids have been left alone with these crazy wannabe rock stars teaching them how to party on the road, instead of in both cases it's framed as like an educational experience for the kids. There's a lot of horrible manipulation done by both characters, but particularly Dewey Finn. This Dewey Finn is a reprehensible individual. Like, as a kid watching the movie, I knew that ultimately he was doing a bad thing. But, you know, in the end, he actually turned out to be a really good teacher, and he really spoke to the kids in a way that resonated with them, and winds up being a pretty inspirational figure towards the end of the movie. But no, in retrospect, everything he does is pretty much flat out terrible. I mean, it basically flashes forward to him. In his case, he starts out being this deadbeat, aging, failed musician, totally freeloading his housing situation in a move that I in no way relate to or anything. Listen, shut up, I'm working on it. But he, the phone rings and he hears that his roommate, who is Ned Schneebly, a substitute teacher, that he's basically getting a gig, he's getting a job, and he basically pretends to be him and steals that job working with children, and the principal ignores his many egregious red flags, including suggesting the use of corporal punishment on the kids by quote-unquote smacking them in the head, amongst other egregious things that you would think would make you think twice before accepting that teacher to work with the kids. But like she repeatedly says, they were in a tight spot, and boy, they must have been. And basically his initial goal is to just do nothing and collect a paycheck. He literally tells the kids on day one that he's hungover and doesn't want to teach them, and that they can just have recess until the week is over. And then the kids accuse him of being an alcoholic, and he's like, I'm not an alcoholic, I just drank too much yesterday. And it's a whole thing. Again, basically a guy walking off the street to be in charge of the supervision of children. It's really icky. Of course, the only thing Dewey Finn cares about is rock and roll, so when he hears the kids in music class, he realizes that they are actually very talented musicians, a lot of them, and that he's going to teach them how to rock and roll, and it's going to be a secret, and they must absolutely not tell their parents that this is what's going on. Don't ever tell your parents or it ruins everything. And he wants to get into this battle of the bands that has a cash reward, and really still his motivations at this point are use the kids to try to be a bit of a gimmick and win money for himself by lying to the kids that this is a super secret project that's going to go on their permanent records and get them into all the top universities if they just follow him along. And again, absolutely do not tell their parents. Again, rewatching this as an adult was just wild. To be fair, hi. Come here. Climb chair. Brief intermission. There's dog. Hello. Many kisses. Hi, Kylo. Intermission for dog. Okay, go. Where was I? Yeah, so Dewey basically gets the principal drunk in order to convince her to let him take the kids on a field trip that he's not going to give her any more details for, other than that it's a concert with totally classical music or whatever, and she agrees to it, and then nobody knows really where he takes them, and then the parents get wind of it, and then basically the principal has to declare to the parents of all these kids that their children are missing and have gone to a field trip somewhere while they're just hanging out with a bunch of hard rock bands waiting for their turn at the show. And I get it. It is charming that he takes this class of 25 to 30 kids, and whether they're in the band or not, gives them different roles. He does coach this one girl who is concerned about her body image and doesn't want to be in the band, that she is worthy of love and praise and glory for being an epic singer no matter what she looks like. So that's kind of a positive message. And yeah, anyone who's not in the band, he gives them jobs either like as background dancers or backup singers or band management, or he gets a couple of techie kids to do the lighting system when someone's working the sound, and he's got kids designing the outfits, and everyone sort of has a role. And it's like, again, that's supposed to be the redeeming factor of it all, that in the end he's really motivated all these kids and they've really bonded together and done something that is, at the end of the day, a positive thing, sort of. I mean, they are all expressing themselves artistically, but without the consent of any of their actual guardians, at any point. And yeah, basically the parents somehow figure out that they've gone to this Battle of the Bands thing, and they get in to try to save their parents from this maniac, but they don't stop them in time before they go up on stage, and they rock the show with the most epic concert ever. And I'll be honest, that song does slap to this day. The song that guitarist Zach Mooneyham is said to have written for the movie. And I did watch that scene over and over as a kid. And again, I'll get to the rocker because there are very similar scenes in that movie. Again, these films share a lot of tropes between them. But yeah, that's sort of the big ending of the movie, is that the parents, having pushed their way to the front to try to get a hold of their kids, see how awesome they work as a unit and how amazing the show actually was, and forgive Dewey Finn for it because it was actually awesome. Now, I understand it's all played for comedy. I don't mean to give this movie a negative review. It's a fun movie for kids. I just, as an adult, you watch it and you're like, this is a terrible guy. Because he at no point, like, any good he's done for these kids is accidental. They don't win the talent show, but he was in it to get the money. And at the end, he's meant to start his own private practice, in like doing after school kind of rock camp type things, and I guess all his charges were dropped for the like 28 counts of basically kidnapping and endangering a child. Not really endangering, but sort of. Yeah, those are all forgotten on account of they rocked really hard and they did AC/DC cover everyone liked. Anyway, the rocker is less blatantly illegal, but still a little twisted on the part of Fish, the drummer, Robert Fishman, aka Rainn Wilson, who initially joins the band to play drums for their prom show, and he ignores the tempo of the actual song and goes into a big epic drum fill, and then they basically throw him out again. He winds up apologizing and getting back in the band, and part of winning back the other band members is showing that he still has some of his connections from his previous music industry time, so he sort of acts as their de facto manager, calling a million venues, and boy have I been there, calling various venues in an increasingly wide geographical range to try to get some gig. Again, I very much relate to this. And he books them a bit of a tour, and he has to convince the band members' parents that it is okay for him to take them and their band on this tour, because it's what they've always wanted. At least he's a little bit more upfront with his motives in this case than Dewey Finn is in School of Rock, but it's still questionable. I mean, it's honestly a decision that lots of people have actually genuinely had to make when you might maybe get successful as a musician as a young age. I always wonder, when these 15 and 16-year-old musicians go on tour, discussions like this must be had with the parents, where it might seem like a bad choice to let your kids go and be supervised by like tour managers and stuff like that. But so at least this is a more realistic premise than School of Rock had. But yeah, Fish doesn't really teach them much of anything, and pretty much spends the entire time trying to relive his 80s glory days and drink his face off and be a rock and roll party guy again. And same as in School of Rock, the parents are fairly horrified, and for good reason, but come to their senses when they perform an epic show, opening up, in this case, for Vesuvius, and we'll get to that. There's this whole convoluted plot that would have made more sense in 2020 than in 2009. They're basically predicting Zoom in a weird way, it would seem, by all band members getting together in different locations and doing I guess at the time it would be like a Skype call together to rehearse music, and then they don't realize Fish is supposed to be so old and out of touch that he doesn't understand that it's a camera, and he's in a house that's really hot, as explained in a previous scene, and so he is doing them on camera completely naked, and all these high schoolers are just kind of watching him and not saying anything while being horrified. And then I guess one of the band members' little sisters, they thinks it's funny and posts it on the YouTube because it's so funny, and then they go viral and all the record companies suddenly want them, and they get hired to do a big show opening for Phish's old nemesis, Vesuvius. Vesuvius is being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course, Robert Fishman's former band. Phish initially quits the band and goes back to his desk job because he flat out refuses to open for that horrible band because he is more epic and awesome than they will ever be. And in this case, it's now the band convincing Phish to rejoin them for this epic gig, which he ultimately does. And where School of Rock ends with their big show at Battle of the Bands, the Rocker ends with their big show at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, opening up for Vesuvius. As a side note, when I first watched this movie, the Vesuvius song Promised Land I thought was so catchy, and I was obsessed with it, and I even think I bought the DLC for it for Rock Band. But yeah, they're kind of just rock and roll fantasy movies from an era when I was very much having the same fantasies of rock and roll glory. A scene that really gives me goosebumps, still to this day, in The Rocker, is when they all walk out in, again, I wish I could play the clip, but they all walk out in the empty Quicken Loans Arena with all the empty seats and the whole road crew setting up for a big show. And I always felt like that was sort of the dream feeling of walking into your big arena gig. Technically, I might experience that feeling in 2 weeks when Alive and Kissin' is going to be intermission entertainment for a hockey game playing in a smaller 5,000 seat arena, but still, that sounds like a lot of seats to me. So hopefully I get that feeling and I get to vlog it in a couple of weeks. Not to that same extent as in the movie, but still, I always loved that scene. And that's basically it. Despite all of the criticisms I've just hurled at these two movies, particularly School of Rock, I still love both of them. It was still great to go back and relive the nostalgia from being a kid and loving these movies. Thanks, James, for the suggestion. And I'm going to make a few more videos before this month is done, even though I did get behind. Tomorrow, as in real life tomorrow, I think there might be 1 or 2 videos in between it for y'all, but I'm going to be going down to Seattle and filming what I hope to be 3 different videos for VEDS, but I know I'm running out of days this month, but there will be at least 1 video from me every day from here on out till the end of the month, and then during the first week of October, I'm going to do a VEDS wrapped video. So thanks for sticking with me through a video most days in September for me this year. And yeah, check out all the other channels I've mentioned in the description, and there'll be a new video from me either later tonight or tomorrow. Thank you, and I'll see you real soon.